Episode number 60.
This episode is brought to you by our Career Kickstart coaching program, where we help ambitious working mums who are feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or frustrated to take the best next step in their careers. Making the right career move can be hard enough. And when you add motherhood into the mix, well, things can get really complicated. So through our program, we can help you to ditch the frustration and the overwhelm and get to a place where you are loving your work and life. So if this sounds good to you, then head over to our website at lightboxcoaching.com to find out more information.
Hi, you're listening to the Careers Beyond Motherhood podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help working mums like you to thrive in your careers and in motherhood. I share tips, strategies, and inspirational conversations with awesome women to help reduce the struggle in your juggle.
Time for say, Mummy.
Hello, and welcome to the show. I am so excited to be speaking to you today on episode 60 of the podcast. I'm going to be totally honest with you and say that I wasn't sure we would make it this far, because this podcast started back in 2016, and since starting I had my daughter and have had a whole load of other things going on in my life and my career, and so I wasn't sure that we could continue to show up consistently with this podcast and continue to interview guests and to share my thoughts on different topics around careers beyond motherhood. But we're here, we've made it. And so if you're a first-time listener or you're a long-time listener of the show, I just want to say thank you for choosing to spend some time with us. I know there's lots of other things you could be doing, but the fact that you are tuning into this episode and to the podcast generally really lights me up. When I log into the back end of the podcast and can see the analytics, I'm able to see where people are tuning in from and how many people are downloading episodes, and it really does spur me on and give me the motivation to keep going when I see people from all over the world are tuning into the podcast, and then also when I get feedback by way of reviews or when people reach out to me in messages or emails and let me know that they really enjoyed the episode, or that an episode was impactful for them, or that a conversation that I had with a guest made a difference. That really does keep me going. So if you haven't done so already, please head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Let me know your thoughts on the episode, or come over to Instagram and send me a DM, a message, and let me know your thoughts on the podcast and how it's impacted your life over the last 60 episodes, or whichever number episodes you've managed to listen to so far. Our handle is at Careers Beyond Motherhood on Instagram, so I'd love to connect with you over there. Alternatively, send me a message on LinkedIn. Okay, on to today's episode. One of the things that I love about podcasting is the fact that I get to speak to and learn from so many amazing people. So when I took the Strengths Finder test, being a learner was one of my top strengths, because I absolutely love learning. I love learning new things. I love learning from new people. And so being a podcast host is really good for that, because I get to meet new people all of the time. And the person that I'm interviewing today is an awesome lady that I met as part of the mastermind group that I've been in. If you haven't listened to episode 54 of the podcast where I talked about the power of community, I would suggest that you go and listen to that, because I talk all about the mastermind, how it impacted me, how it made a difference, and why it's great to be part of a community of women who are like-minded and striving to do similar things to what you're striving to do. My guest today is going to talk to us about money. And money is a topic that I don't think us women talk about enough. Christina Sjahli is a cash flow consultant who has over 20 years experience working in finance. And on this episode, we're going to dive into firstly her career journey and how she had to rebuild her career when she relocated to a different country, why she ended up leaving that career that she worked so hard to build. And then she's going to dive into how we can take control of our money situation, whether that's on the personal front or the business front. She is going to be breaking down for us how we can approach our money situation. So without further ado, let's jump into my interview with Christina.
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience. Oh, thank you, Janice. I'm really, really excited to be here. And I truly appreciate it that you have me on your podcast. So, well, my name is Christina Sjahli, and I basically have Christina Sjahli Consulting, which is I am a cash flow consultant and CFO partnering with 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs and small businesses. I learned why I'm doing what I do right now. It's basically because I learned that no matter how well a company is doing in terms of revenue, and then I experienced this over 20 years of being in finance, it doesn't matter that you can have like 9 figures revenue in the background. If you think about it or if you look at it, cash flow is so important. And they can struggle paying their expenses. They can struggle paying their payroll, even though their financial statement looks like awesome, and then they're making money. But the profit on the financial statement, not disregarding the importance of it, but I truly believe that if you don't have a positive cash flow in a business, especially as a small business, you basically just have a hobby. So that's just a little bit background of my business. I live in Toronto, Canada. I have a 9 years, almost 10, who thinks that he's already 17 years old. So I have that challenge dealing with him. My husband and I originally came from Indonesia, but we've been living in Canada for 17 years now.
Awesome. Oh, there's so much I want to ask you about. Okay, so you said that you've been in finance for like 20 years. So talk to me a bit about what your work looked like before you kind of shifted into your current way of working with businesses directly.
Sure. So I started my career with Ernst & Young as an auditor. And, obviously my degree is in accounting, and then I always wanted to be an auditor, and because I thought that as an auditor and then working for a consulting firm like Ernst & Young, KPMG, and Pricewaterhouse, that gives me the tools to learn many different industries. And I like that. I like the variety in being an auditor. So I started my career in Ernst & Young, and I stay in Jakarta, Indonesia. And then I moved to Canada in 2002. And basically, practically, I had to rebuild my career, because it doesn't matter that I already have an experience, and then I graduated from a US university, and in Canada, it's just completely different. I have to rebuild. I have to take a different license in Canada. So I struggle. When I moved to Canada, I had to take any kind of job. I was working in retail. I was working as a sales in a boutique, and for almost 9 months. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, no, there is no way I can continue doing this. Like I miss, even though when I was working at Ernst & Young, and then I work like crazy hours and an auditor, like especially like during the busy time. But when I kind of like have to switch direction with there is no deadline, there is no excitement, I miss that. Yeah. Right? So I said to myself, I'm like, I cannot do this. And then I was applying to different firms, to Pricewaterhouse, KPMG, all the big firms, thinking that my Ernst & Young career will help me, but that didn't happen. So I had to start thinking a different way. I basically start applying for a job in the US in a smaller firm. So I got a job. So I came to Canada in 2002, May, and then I moved to the US, to Minnesota in 2003, January, and then started my career over there, rebuilt my career in an audit firm again, because I thought, you know what, that's my background. Now I stay in the US for 2 years and stay in that small firm for a year. And then after that, I switched to Pricewaterhouse. Okay. Thinking that, you know what, with building another name in the US, it would make it easier for me to transition back to Canada, because I know I do not want to live in the US. I did not want to live there, right? I want to settle in Canada. I just have to find a way back on how am I going to do that. Right? So I did that. So I stayed in the US for 2 years. And in 2005, I applied to KPMG in Canada, in Toronto, and then they accepted me. So I moved back. I rebuilt my career again. So think about it, like throughout all this time, I'm rebuilding my career. So, and then I took my exam. I took my license to practice in Canada. But throughout that time, my husband and I, we were basically said, you know what, until I got my license, until I settled down, we postponed to have a family. So finally, after I get my license, I decided to leave audit overall. Like, I'm like, I cannot do this. I want to build my family. And then I know the long hours working, like, 15 hours a day, it's impossible for me. Right. So in 2009, I left KPMG in 2007, and 2009, I had my son, right? I had my son. And at that time, to tell you the truth, like, yes, life changes, right? Like I have to juggle. I was not able to take a full year maternity leave. Even though we were allowed to take, 12 months over here, I had to go back because of demand, right? Like, and I hated it. And I think from there, I started to feel like something is missing. But you build a new career in a new country. I didn't have time to really think about it, like, to think about having my own business. It never crossed my mind at all whatsoever. I thought I would build my career and then I would stay in the corporate world forever, even though life changed after having a child, right? My working hours stay crazy. Like I would work Saturday, Sunday, and thankfully my husband has always been supportive. And I had to leave home by 6 o'clock. I would leave home. I travel for an hour because we live in a suburb. I travel to Toronto for an hour, and then I have to pick up my son at 4 o'clock, and so travel back. So I need to make sure that I work it out, like the full hours in the office. So I make sure I get to the office at 7 and then leave by 4 to be able to pick him up by 5:30. So it was crazy. But throughout that year, I keep building my career. And, I work for mining companies, right? So I keep building my career, and then I keep moving up the ladder. Finally, what happened, I reached a level as an executive management in 2016. I was head of finance and for a mining company with 3 operations all over in South America. It was in Brazil, Honduras, and Mexico, and Canada. So I was in Canada. That job, that promotion required me to basically travel. So I was spending 3 weeks in a month traveling from one location to another location. Right. And then my CEO decided to move the company or the headquarters to Miami. So I was still based in Toronto, but he moved the headquarters to Miami. Again, I spent like almost a month in Miami because he was there, and I was not able to see my family at all. Right. But the money was good. The career was good. I reached a point in December 2017, and I just said to my husband, I said, you know what? I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew at that moment it's not something that I wanted to continue. And I also felt like as a female, you keep moving up the corporate ladder. Unfortunately, you have to compete with all the men that can spend like all their time in the office. They can spend all their time traveling because the wives stay at home and take care of the kids. But as a mother, I feel the guilt all the time that I was not able to stay at home with my son. And when I was traveling, and then I would call home, and then he would say, "When are you coming home? Are you going to come home? Are you going to be here on the weekend?" And that just kept breaking my heart, right?
Yeah.
And so that's it. Like in December 2017, I left. I just left. I just dropped everything and left. And, the thing is that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then throughout that process, when I was thinking like what I want to do, I worked with a life coach, trying to figure out what is the best way. And I told you before we started recording this, I said at that moment, I thought I would be a life coach. I thought I would be doing digital marketing. I thought I would be doing something completely different than finance.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a confusing time for me. But at the end of the day, I said, you know what? I still have my love with finance. I still think that a lot of business owners need to understand how important it is. So I just made the decision, you know what? I'm going to become a cash flow consultant because I do not want to see any business owner fail at all. I saw that in a big company, like they could suddenly just things happen because they don't have any cash. So that's kind of my journey.
That's amazing. And I know how it feels to get to that point where you're just like, I can't do this and I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know it's not this. And that's how I felt when I was considering going back to my corporate lawyer role after having my son. I was like, I don't want to not be around. And so I'm just going to just hand in my notice. But I have no idea
what's definitely not worth it. You reach a certain point in life and then you just said, okay, yeah, the money is there, the career is there, but what does this all mean?
Yes. Yeah. And so it's exciting that you decided, okay, I'm going to take the experience that I have and use that to start my business. Because I think often you can, when you're in that place of like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, you can be like looking for the completely different thing to do. But drawing on your experience means that you can use that expertise, those 20 years, to really help people. So how have you felt now, like now that you're running your business? Like what's the difference in terms of your schedule and just life? Like how does it look different now?
Well, you know what? Definitely it's a struggle, right? It's been like almost 15 months by now. Having my own business, it's definitely challenging. And then one of the most challenging part is mindset. Because I'm not saying when you have a career in the corporate world, mindset is not important. But I felt when I was in the corporate world, I was just like, go, go, go. I didn't have time to think about everything else. There are many other people that have to think about how you're going to market the product. How are you going to, create new product, create new services? Like I didn't have to think about it. I just have to manage my department and then get the job done and move on, right? And then it's still long hours. But what I have to learn is that this journey of building my own business using my experience of 20 years, it's really a mindset journey. Okay. Because when I feel so low, I have to be able to pick up myself again and really focus and then say, okay, this one is not working. How am I going to work? How can I make this work? And then it's not easy. And then I'm pretty sure that a lot of people feel the same way. Like, you and I were in the same mastermind, and then our leader, Renee, has been like amazing in helping everybody to pick up ourselves and then switch our mindset. Keep, how would I say it? Like she keep encouraging us to think positively. And then I think that's huge. I do not dismiss like the importance of having a community. And I do believe as well that you are, Janine, like building a community for people who are thinking, what do I do now after motherhood?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
So
I was literally talking to someone earlier on today who's just literally, she's like, I'm starting my business, and she's like, how is it going? What's it like? And I was like, having a business is the best personal development tool you could ever have,
God.
because you are about to go on a roller coaster of like emotions, like it causes you to face up to stuff that you never even knew were there. You have to put yourself out there, you have to be vulnerable, you have to face rejection. But equally, when things go well and you do have a client that you help and you support, and you can see the impact that you've made directly, that's priceless. Like, it's amazing.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing for me in terms of working for myself now, when I started this journey, like, I thought about, my life coach basically helped me to realize, to put value, what are my priority in life. Okay. And that was like my guidance. That is my roadmap until now, right? In terms of taking a client, in terms of marketing myself, like, what is really important to me as a person. Because I think when I was building my career, I completely forgot what is important. So one of my biggest value is freedom of time. Freedom to be in control on how I want to lead my life, right? And freedom to be able to spend the time with my family, right? That's are just like important. So now when I'm stressing out, when I'm thinking like, I cannot do this, like, I don't know how to put myself out there, then I think back, okay, do I really want to go back to corporate? Is this really the journey that I want to take? Like, how is that aligned to my value in terms of freedom, in terms of my family, right? Freedom and family are so key to me. Is that gonna make me happy? Right now, in all honesty, like, my son is very active in baseball. My son is a speed skater. When I was working, I didn't have time to watch any of his games. And then I would bring my laptop to all his competition. And then he would get so upset with me because, what are you doing? Why you have your computer over here? Like, you're supposed to be watching me. But I couldn't do any of those. Now I have the freedom to say, you know what? It's his game time. I'm going to focus on him.
Yeah.
Right? And it's priceless. It cannot be replaced with anything.
Yeah. That is so awesome. I love it. So I know that you are like a numbers whiz, and you are always, like you said before, like, you think it's so important for people to know their numbers and to know their cash flow and stuff like that. So that our listeners to this show are either women who have started their own businesses or who are in corporate. So can you kind of just share like some key things around your numbers and how you can make sure that you are like on top of them? Because I'm totally not on top of them all the time. It's one thing, I should so get to that. I should do my bookkeeping, and I just won't like do it. So
okay.
Tell me, convince me that I need to get a bit on board.
No problem at all. Okay. I know, okay, this is what I heard many, many times from entrepreneurs or business owner or people just starting the journey, right? Like, they're saying, I don't like numbers, like, I hate numbers. And you know what? The truth is that I don't think they hate numbers or they do not like numbers. I think it's about a process. Once people know that there is a simple process on how to manage your money, people will be more accepting the fact that, oh yes, it's simple. It's not that complicated, right? Yeah. Like, and then I am not disregarding the fact that when you just starting out, it will be difficult, right? It will be hard to budget. But and then, the thing is that budgeting, cash flow projection is important as part of business as well as part of life, like your personal finance. A lot of when I talk about cash flow projection is basically about how are you balancing between the money that you are receiving with your spending. And then that's just the same with your salary when you are working. How are you managing the salary that you receive with your spending, right? The problem when you are just thinking in your head and then you never really put it a long-term plan at a minimum for 12 months, okay, it's hard to just keep imagining it, right? You really truly have to force yourself to look at the numbers. What is my cash inflow and what are all my spending? It will not look pretty. And then I'm going to tell you that when I work with clients, like at the first time, it won't look pretty. Like the bottom line could be negative, right? But that is the first step. You have to know where you stand with your money. Without knowing where you stand with your money, you will disregard that. Like anything else in life, when you have an issue, but you want to forget about your issue, you don't want to look at it. You're going to hide. You're going to hide from it. And it is exactly the same with money, right? Especially if you are an entrepreneur and small business owner, you have to remember 8 out of 10, and then this is the stat from the US, okay? 8 out of, I don't know in the UK, but 8 out of 10 small business owners, they fail. Not because they couldn't make the sales. It's because they do not know how to manage their cash flow. Okay? So the first thing that you need to do when you are thinking about your own business, in the first step, you have to face that fear and then put everything in the numbers. Line up what is your revenue goal? And then I'm pretty sure Renee talked about this. What is your sales goals for the week? Right? Like we think, but it's only the sales goal. Then you have to start looking at what are your spending? Like what are all the subscription that you are doing, like for your website, right? For LinkedIn, for example, if you're having a sales navigator, what are those subscriptions that you are just signing up, but you do not know what it is? You do not need, like, if you don't want to use a software like QuickBook or Wave or FreshBook, whatever it is, use a spreadsheet. Laid out like month by month, January to December. Really laid that out. Okay, create a spreadsheet with your goal in terms of revenue, in terms of expenses. And then when I say expenses, you don't need a category like marketing expense. List it out by your suppliers. Okay, whoever you are paying out each month. And then now the trick is that is your revenue and then that is your expenses, right? Another thing that you have to think about is your taxes. How much do you expect to pay taxes? And then it does not have to be an exact number. It's an estimate. You can Google like a tax calculator for each country, and then you can find some kind of calculator to calculate based on your income. Okay. And then after that, you have to include like how much do you want to pay yourself, right? Is it 10% of your revenue? If you're just starting out, you can start small for now. But why is this important? Because if you forget to pay yourself, you don't have the motivation to keep going. Think about it, because you are doing this to make some progress. Okay? You don't have to say that I'm going to take 50% of my revenue as my salary. You know, if you are a service provider, you can. But if you don't want to, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to reward myself 10% of my revenue. And then I'm going to put another 30% to invest back to my business. Maybe I need to rebuild my brand. Maybe I need to build a website. But it's all about your planning, right? It's important to plan when you are starting out to give you the vision to see where you want to go. It becomes even more important when you are scaling to become a bigger to become bigger, right? If your target right now is 5 figures, for example, right? A lot of people starting out, you're targeting to make a 5 figures income. Then you're going to scale to 6. Then you're going to scale to 7. Then you're going to scale to 8. Some Some entrepreneurs wants to do that, right? Without planning, without knowing that your vision is translating into numbers. It's going to be so difficult to know if you are going to be profitable. And the key is this. If you don't have a profit, if you are not making money, it's a hobby. But you want to remember that you are doing this journey to become an entrepreneur because you want to support your lifestyle. You want to support your family. You want to build your retirement fund. So you start small. Don't start big because it's just going to make you feel like I cannot accomplish it. Like oh my God, like, I want 100,000 in the first year. Don't. Start small. You can say, I want 50,000. How am I going to accomplish that? I want 60,000. Keep increasing that, right? Like I fell into that trap at myself, right? To forget, but I have to bring back myself. I'm like, okay, you know what? This is not working. I have to look at the numbers because I'm a number person. If I don't do this, I am done. My biggest thing for entrepreneurs or even anybody, like do a cash flow projection is so important. So important. Okay. And then for those, if any of your listener are planning to scale, if they already have a business and then they want to scale, there are 3-step process that I'm teaching. It's basically foundation. Once you build your foundation, you go to your cash flow and financial management. Then you start building your financial model. Without that, I've seen it in big companies. It fails. And then I don't want anybody in the journey to fail.
Oh my goodness, Christina, I am so glad you didn't say goodbye to finance. Like, people need you to be sharing this stuff because now I'm like, yes, I need to do this. Thank you, Christina, for the motivation. It's so important. And I think that, like, it is one of those things where people just park it and just put it aside. And often it's because they feel like they can't understand it or don't really know where to start. And so when you break it down like that, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I can set up my spreadsheet and but it's not just about setting up the spreadsheet. Like, you've now given me the understanding as to why it's so important. Like, before it was like, I know I should be doing this. Like, I should be keeping track of my numbers, but I don't think anyone's really broke it down like that, where I'm like, oh, okay, like the whole projection part of it and the whole, like, you need to know where you're going with it over the time. Like, I just love the way you just explained that.
You know what? Like, I do believe that everybody has the ability with numbers. It truly does. It's just, I think that fear, it's the fear that, because once you put everything into writing, into numbers, it becomes a reality.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it. Because if not, then it's just your imagination.
I love that.
Once it's a number, once it's paper, you have no way to.
Right.
So it's funny because, not funny, but this coming weekend, actually, I'm going to be talking about being authentic with your money can improve profitability and your life. And then it's the truth.
I love that. Oh, so good. Okay, so one of the things I like to ask is just around any advice that you would give to any listeners who have been in your shoes, where you described before that you're in a place of like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And I know that my family is really important to me, but I'm not quite sure like what to do. Like, do you have any kind of words of advice for someone who's in those similar shoes right now?
Yes, get a coach.
Yes.
Because you know what? And then the reason I said that is because when you are so confused in what you want to do next, especially as a career woman, and you just start a family, you need an outside perspective. Okay, someone that can guide you to basically ask you the question, ask someone that has been there, because you, Janine, like, you have been there. You understand. And then my coach before, my life coach, she had been there. So when you work with someone, when you have a coach that basically had been in that situation, they are one step ahead of you. We always hear that you always want to learn from someone, or you want to be in a group that are people that are like a step, 2 step ahead of you. And then it's very true when you are try to transition or try to figure out, what do I do next now that I have a family, that I'm trying to raise a child. You have to be working with someone that understand your situation and can point you to the right direction. And another thing, I think it's all because they have outside perspective, they have different resources. Like you have your community, Janine, right? Like, it will help the people to understand and then share the knowledge, share the stress on how to navigate this confusion and then all the crazy stuff in our head.
Yeah. And it also helps when you're part of a community to know that you're not the only one, because when you're going through stuff, it can feel so isolating. Like if your immediate friends and family circle aren't going through the same thing, you can feel really alone and like nobody understands. But as soon as you get in a group of women who are like, oh yeah, I totally feel that as well, or I've been there, like there's something about that makes you feel like, okay, it's possible for me to work this out.
Yes.
Other people have as well. So yeah.
Definitely. So, I truly believe in having a coach, because it did help me, right?
Yeah.
It helped me to figure out which direction I want to go and what values that I want that to become my roadmap going forward. And then that's always going to change, but because you have the roadmap, you're always going to go back to that, right? So you're always going to go back to that. And then I think another thing that I want to add, if you are a mother and then you are trying to figure out how you can juggle between your career and your family, one of the things that I learned, you have to dedicate a time, like if what are throughout the 8 days, not 8 days, 8 hours, 10 hours in your life, in one day, what is so important to you? If bedtime is so important, to spend time with your kids, read a book, or just spend half an hour and focus on your kids, do that. And then if dinner time is so important for you, make sure that you are home for dinner, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to dedicate like one day on a weekend, or a few hours on a weekend to just like focus on your family. When you are so busy, sometimes quality it's more important than quantity.
Absolutely. I love that. That is so, so good. Do you have any kind of mantras or quotes or, sayings that have really stood out to you that you like to share with people?
Do not compare someone's middle to your beginning.
Yes, I love that.
I do not know who wrote that. I just read it somewhere and I'm like, that is so true.
Yeah, and I've heard it in a different way. So the way that I heard it was, do not compare somebody's chapter 20 to your chapter 1, which is the same. It's essentially the same thing, right? Where it's like from the outside looking, when you're looking from the outside, you can say like, oh my gosh, this person's so much more ahead of me, or they've got it all together, but you don't know what they had to go through to get there. And like everyone's on their journey. So you have to just focus on your race, right?
Exactly. And then another thing, do you know Ellen DeGeneres?
No.
From the US?
I don't
She
know.
has a show, Ellen DeGeneres. Okay. Anyway, so she is very famous. Okay.
Oh, Ellen. You're talking about Ellen. Yes.
Yeah.
Ellen. Yeah.
Ellen.
Yeah.
Ellen and Portia de Rose.
It's because you said her whole name, and I never I just always.
Oh, okay, Ellen.
Yeah.
So yesterday I went to her show in Toronto. Cool. She came to Toronto, and then I went there. You know what? One thing that I learned, and something powerful that she shared over there, is that for her 60th birthday, her wife basically gifted or give her, an amazing gift. Like basically now Ellen and Portia de Rossi is building a campus over in Rwanda to be a center of scientific research for gorilla. Have you heard Diane Fossey, the Gorilla Fund in Rwanda?
Yeah.
It's back in the 1970 and 1980. She was killed in 1985. But anyway, the point of that, they are donating $10 million to Rwanda. Okay. The thing is that this is the interesting part. And then when she said that, it's like, oh my God, it's so true. Rwanda and many African countries, they are not open to gay couple, right? They're still not open to that. But the fact that Ellen and Portia got invited to by the president of Rwanda and then took a picture together after they donate the $10 million to build a campus over there, that is a power of money. So what I learned from there is this. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, you can take it in a different way, okay? The power, when you want to spread your message, your product, or your service, you need to have that power. And this is why I am so passionate in teaching, because small business owner, we all have a message to the world. But you need to make sure that you have the power of money to spread your message. Because without that, you're not going to be able to do it. Even though in a very small amount, I'm not talking about $10 million, honestly. Yeah. Not $10 million, but even like a small amount, like you, Janine, you're building your community, right? Like, when you want your community to be bigger and then you want to build your brand, think about that. There is a power to money because you want to spread your message and help other women that are going through transition.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful, because it's really that sometimes you can get caught up in the whole like earning money, like do I really need so much? But actually the more you earn, the more impact you can make, and the more you earn, the more you can give. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that whole, I'm trying to earn so much money and that's a greedy thing, or that's that some people have that mindset. And so I love that you kind of broke that down.
No, it's not about being greedy. It's about spreading your message to the world, really.
Yeah. Amazing. So Christina, if people want to learn more about you and learn more about your message and all that you're doing, where are the best places for them to connect with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn.
I know, which is amazing. I love your videos. Go and check out her videos on LinkedIn. They are amazing.
So they can find me on LinkedIn, and then also I have a website, ChristinaSjahli.com, and then I'm gonna tell you this. I've been having a 10-minute interview with 6 and 7 figures women, because I want to empower other women to dream high and then to know that they can achieve their dream. I'm going to turn that interview into podcast now.
Yes, that is so good. So good, because it's different audience. Like there's people that watch video, and then there's a whole load of people that love podcasts. So
oh my God, yes, and then
more people.
Yes, so I'm gonna turn those in, because I found like LinkedIn only allow me to put 10 minutes. That's why I said it's the 10-minute CEO interview. But I want the people that I interview, they're just amazing. I'm sure you felt the same way, because when you're hearing all this interview, the podcast,
I love it. It's
right?
So, right? It's so interesting to hear people's journeys, their stories.
It's powerful.
It really is.
So I'm gonna invite you to my podcast later.
Yes, I'd love to come. Thank you. Oh, it's been so good interviewing you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
for joining us.
Oh, okay. Take care.
How great was Christina? It was so great for her to give us those practical tips. I don't know about you, but I certainly feel both challenged and inspired to go and sort my money situation out and to keep track of things in a much more purposeful and intentional way. I really love how Christina was open and transparent about some of her struggles, and the fact that she did seek the advice and support of a coach when she was trying to figure out what would be best for her career going forward. As a certified coach myself, I know how impactful it can be to work with a coach to help you to get super clear on where it is you want to go in your career, and then have the support and the strategy around getting there. And if you are someone who is at a crossroads right now in your career and you're trying to figure out what the next stage should be within your corporate career, or you're trying to figure out how you will launch your own business, then I would invite you to check out my Career Kickstart Guide, which takes you through the 4-part process that I use with my clients to help them to gain clarity around where they want to go in their career post-motherhood and the steps they need to take to start moving in the right direction. So if you're interested in that guide, head over to lightboxcoaching.com/kickstart and you can download a copy of that. And if you would like to connect with Christina, you really should because she's awesome, then I will be putting the link to her website and also to LinkedIn where she's really active and her podcast on the show notes. So you can grab the show notes at lightboxcoaching.com/episode 60. All right, ladies, that is all I have for you today. I look forward to connecting with you again in the next episode. Until then, please head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Look after you, look after your babies, and I will be back again next time. This podcast features music from Ben Sound.